We still have with us Mark Bichachi, a political analyst. We also have Okiya Mtata, human rights activist, Charity Say, an active citizen is what she calls herself, and Kiprono, Amnesty Safety and Digit Manager with us. Let's just jump straight into now law, matters judiciary. Recently, Maraga visited his frustrations last week, and there was a quote-unquote mini handshake between the executive and the judiciary. Can the head of judiciary, in this case Maraga, speak his frustrations without looking like he's attacking the executive, Okiya?
Well, he doesn't need to be attacking the executive. Simply, what Maraga expressed was simply the state of affairs in the judiciary. The only thing I did not agree with is him raising his hands and declaring that he's a Boy Scout, he's not a soldier like the president. To me, there are equal heads of different departments of government with different functions. The functions of the president may be more elaborate and whatever, but the judiciary can remove the president from power. Why were his frustrations painted as if he's against executive? No, I don't. Maybe it was just in the tools he chose to put. But what happened is that, and the way I saw it also from the way the president landed on him, and in a way landed on me, because the description the president gave seems to have fitted me, is that they are not comfortable with an independent judiciary, and an independent judiciary is the anchor of freedom of expression. They say a free man has two legs to walk on. One is an independent judiciary, and two is an independent media. That's the two legs upon which a free society walks. And if you look at history, you'll never find an independent judiciary without an independent media. You can never find an independent media without an independent judiciary. The two work together. So what we are having right now is that the clampdown on the judiciary is the epitome of the clampdown on the freedom of expression. Because it's in the judiciary where people go and hold power accountable. The only place you can hold power accountable is the judiciary today. And the judiciary has been given the tools to sort of supervise the other organs of the other arms of government. But now when you find the Chief Justice basically running around with a beggar's ball in his hand, because the executive has decided to ignore the constitution, which says that the judiciary, every department should be given the funds it requires to operate, and basically shut down the judiciary. And if you compare the budget of the judiciary to other things that are being spent on other things, you just get shocked. So you find that you cannot claim that you have got freedom of expression in this country where you do not have a free judiciary, an independent judiciary. So who guarantees that freedom of expression? Where will you go with it?
But also, have you seen instances where the judiciary say he has sort of let down Kenyans? Because even the president himself said that the Akasha's case was here, nothing happened, and then in the US there was convictions. And we've seen Kenyans also putting up placards saying that we demand a working judiciary free of corrupt judges now. This is because of the rulings that came through.
What I would say is that judiciary is an institution. If there's an individual corrupt judicial officer, deal with him. Don't use an individual corrupt judicial officer to paint the whole judiciary dirty. Can we hold, if the president has got evidence that the judiciary, that the people who handled the Akasha case mishandled it, could it be that the FBI did a better job than the CID? Could it be that? Or that so that the judge in the US had the facts and he could easily make a judgment. Here you find sometimes when you go to, first of all, look at some of the crimes we investigate in this country. I've looked at some crimes, very high-level crimes. But if you look at the people, the investigating officers are basic, very junior officers who have got no stake in the whole thing. Number two, you find that even in the way we prosecute matters in this country, sometimes they're so selective that you wonder whether there's a political agenda behind what is being done. And I want to bring to the fore, there was this case of, before Nani goes to condemn the president, I'm bringing it out before the president condemns the judiciary. There's this case where his family was mentioned in a 5 million scam at the Ministry of Health. Why has that matter never been investigated?
The Afia scandal.
The Afia scandal. The EACC told us they even ran there. Mubea ran there and whatever, they say we're going to bring, that thing has gone dead. Now the containers have been secretly moved aside. So can we, if that thing had been taken to the US, would Trump have done the same? I don't know. So to me, I think that the problem we have is rule of law. And the president will do this country well to go back and say, I will obey the rule of law.
Yeah.
Kindly, I've got advisors here, get competent people to advise him, and before he takes an action, he says, what does the law provide?
Yeah.
What are the limitations?
All right.
What can I do and what can I not do?
Yeah, see.
You see, for me, what I think is what the president is doing with his war on the judiciary is a confirmation bias kind of activity. In other words, if the judiciary in and of itself has delayed and denied justice over the years for various reasons, even before it was financially strangled, but the way we see now, that has confirmed the bias that the president wants to put out, that the judiciary is ineffective, it is corrupt, it is compromised, and so on and so forth. There was an elderly gentleman I watched on the news yesterday who's been in court fighting a land case since 1965. He is in his 80s. The people he fought alongside have died. In 1965, you can be sure that all the people talking here today were not perhaps able to articulate the way they are articulating now. So yes, there are some historical, systemic issues and problems within the judiciary that need to be tackled. But to weaponize those problems, to then hit the judiciary and say, this is why we are doing, this is why we are revisiting, this is why the judiciary is not functioning, this is why we are restricting resources, or you're told live within your budget. Let me also say that when you have cases that are delayed, that are fudged, that are confused in these halls of justice, who is often behind this? The Attorney General is notorious for being the last one, if at all, to provide submissions in court. And the Attorney General is the advisor of who and to who? So when you look at this, some of these cases that are delayed, this elderly gentleman was caught up in the dragnet of just broad judicial inefficiencies. And poor gentleman, he may pass away before he ever sees his land rightfully returned to him. But what you're seeing, if I just let me complete this sentence, what you're seeing is that where you have delays in the delivery of justice, the same executive that is attacking the judiciary is involved. They delay, they subvert, they compromise. And our energy justice cases, our two petitions, 6 and 59, is a classic example of that, where there's clear conflict of interest, where there's attorney-client privilege violation, where there are all kinds of things that any fair-minded judge would be able to act and say, actually, due process was not followed. We need to pursue this to the logical conclusion. Instead, we are delayed. Instead, we are pushed. It is 15, 16 months on. We are still trying to reopen a case that would affect the lives of every single Kenyan who is paying electricity
Let me
bills.
bring in Bichachi as well. Here's the thing. Judiciary is facing quite a number of troubles. More budgets are coming. Austerity measures, according to CS Security Attorney, will continue, and we are a few months away from reading the next financial budget. All ministries will be affected. It's just not judiciary. You are seeing lack of confirmation from judges. Some judges are also set to retire this year. Maraga himself has about a year left. We're seeing all these loopholes within judiciary. What will it take to salvage this troubled judicial ship?
First, I agree with Jerotich. In this particular matter, neither the executive nor the judiciary is coming into this thing with clean hands. It's not coming into this thing with clean hands because it is true. Because if you look at the whole judicial process, the office of the DPP is highly underfunded, which is a problem. The quality of prosecutors, and I'm not saying we are bad prosecutors, I'm talking about they've not been trained and educated enough. The attempts to change this, but that is also something that is lacking. The quality of officers in the DCI is also another issue. Are we training them well enough? So it is not a judiciary problem, it is a judicial system problem. Because whether you look at it from the Attorney General side, you look at it from the government side, there are problems. If you look at the judiciary itself, its prioritization of issues, the decision to digitize or not, and things like that, then you also see a judiciary that has problems. We know for a fact that the judiciary is not only involved in delaying cases, it's also involved in some corrupt practices. There's a famous story that is told of a judge who told the police that, no, you cannot be the custodians of the evidence, please keep it at the court clerk's office. And then the drugs were stolen the next day. These are things that we've seen. You've seen, for example, Kenya is having all manner of hue and cry about Babu Owino, who was released on installments of bail. So there's a lot of issues, and no one is clean here. How do we sort this issue out? Number one, there must be an admission of wrongdoing. The judiciary must say, this is where we go wrong. The executive must say, this is where we've gone wrong. And as a nation, we need to sit down and say, you know what? Perhaps the judiciary needs a fixed percentage of our budget given to them.
But what's happening is that they're pointing fingers at each other.
And so they're just pointing fingers at each other. And Okiya Mtata said it correctly. These are co-equal heads of government.
Yeah.
It's not about a begging bowl. It's not about all of those things. Maraga needs to understand the gravitas of his office. And that said, the truth is, if Kenya is ever going to get to a place where there is justice, we need to admit that there is problems in how we administer justice in this country, that it does not make sense that 2,000 bob worth of weed will get you 30 years in prison, and then you can shoot someone on live camera and then get all manner of things. So there's a lot of problems here, and I agree with Okiya Mtata. We need an independent press, and we need an independent judiciary. Our judiciary has made great strides from the days of Moi. Is there still more that can be done? Of course, yes. And we need to be able to support our judiciary to do so and not hamstring it using budgets.
And Demas Bichachi is bringing a very interesting conversation, because also one of the placards was saying, why is the majority of inmates in Kenya the poor people? When a judge gives a bail ruling, allows it to be paid in installments, and even says that you should stay away from narcotics and alcohol, doesn't that then set ground for temporary insanity even in the future case? Because that is an argument that people can take.
Yeah, it does. I have struggled to understand the rationale that the magistrate used in that judgment, I have to admit. But bail and bond is a discretion of the judiciary. And let me say so far, because I have not interrogated it deeply, that so far, because I believe in the rule of law, I would give it to him that perhaps he was guided by some sense, but you can tell from the tone. With it. Yeah, I struggle with it. Yeah. But the criminal justice system is an ecosystem that begins with the investigating officer and ends with the prison system. Right. In between, we have the probation officers. In between, we have the DPP, who is very important to this process. What I saw yesterday was that with the placards that were placed yesterday is that there is a misunderstanding that the judiciary in itself decides cases. Cases are decided by all the parties. And unfortunately, unfortunately, Kenya is an adversarial system of...
But the last say is with the judiciary. So when judiciary says, when courts can fee Babu Owino, and yet a woman who has been jailed for 30 years because she has bang worth of 2,000, I mean, surely.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, these are deep issues.
It ends with judiciary.
Because we have things called, like, for example, we have things called statutory penalties, where if you are found guilty of a certain thing, the minimum is what you serve. So, for drugs especially, is that if you are found guilty of any drug possession or using of it, you are going for a certain period of time.
So why is that not applying to Babu Owino as well?
No, Owino has not been released.
He hasn't been released. He's having his day in court. He's going to have his day in court. Yeah.
Okay, we'll be patient and wait to see.
Just quick.
The danger with this topic is that we can use emotions to talk about. Let me tell you something. The National Council of Administration of Justice, NCAJ, did a report on the criminal justice system in Kenya. And it covered 2015 to 2017, and found that majority of the people in the criminal justice system are young people and poor people. Apart from that, it found that these people, most of them are arrested the arrests start rising from Thursday, peak on Friday, and then on Saturday it now starts stabilizing, right? And for those who are within the criminal justice system, some of them are released on Saturday without any further interrogation of the matter. What does that tell you? It tells you that there's a lot of money moving around.
So he was the gold, the law favors them.
And as the middle class, we can sit here and start talking about these issues, but just walk around on the weekends in certain parts of this city, and you can be arrested 4 times. Yeah. And every time you're arrested, you need 2,000 shillings to get released. And in some areas, it's even worse, where you are arrested and they demand even 20, they hold you and they demand about 20,000 shillings, and your family, they even give you time to fundraise. This is the ecosystem. So criminal justice is not about what you see in the judiciary itself.
I wanted to... 10 seconds.
And one thing, and I can say that even Haji, our DPP, has started moving towards a better society, because the DPP gave a circular and said that that his officers are supposed to stop charging people with touting. Yeah. Touting was one of those means where you find yourself in court. Yeah.
Okay.
For no reason.
Let's say the judge's 10 seconds. Let's really take a break.
But over the weekend, most people are charged with what? Drunk and disorderly, preparing to commit an offense. These are things that loitering. On the face of it, you can't even see what is going on. But that is the reality that's going on.
And the truth of the matter, and this is the flip side of the coin. The government, when it cuts the budget for the judiciary, and yet the judiciary is a money-making arm of government, that's ironical. Because remember that some of the fees you pay in court end up in the treasury. So it does not, yes, in fact, all of them, yes, quite correct. So you cannot say that you are reducing the budget of an entity that makes you money. And that's what I'm saying. The government is, that's what I'm saying, there's no clean hands here. No, even when you talk about NCAJ, ask him when was the last time this NCAJ met. The parties that are supposed to participate in the NCAJ are not talking to each other. The chair is the Chief Justice, the DPP doesn't want to come, the AG doesn't want to come, and if these guys just sat down and began to solve the issues of this country, look at, for example, how much will we tax our court system? If you go on Monday to those courts, how many people are there being charged for loitering, or you drove without your indicator went off just before the cop met you and things like that? Those are ridiculous things that we should not waste the time of our judges doing. Let's handle stronger, bigger matters.
And I would say around this judiciary issue, the fact that we have 40+ judges that have not been gazetted by the president is one of the ways of paralyzing or further delaying this justice, which already has systemic problems in terms of being able to deliver judgments. You're 40+ judges short, and you expect things to happen. You expect a progress update rapidly. And the final thing I wanted to say about this, if you look at bodies like buyer beware, back to that freedom of speech, why do people use buyer beware? They use buyer beware because rule of law has failed them. They cannot take people who owe them 20,000 bob or 100,000 bob, or who did. They have lost their faith and trust in the judicial system for various reasons, and they resort to that forum to say, I have this problem, can you help me? And oftentimes justice is found that way. But then you have the Hessis on the other hand, who are an open secret, who engage in gangland style extrajudicial executions of young people in Kinadandora, Kayole, and the public is mixed because they don't know, do we support this or do we not? They are not allowing the rule of law to work. So on the one hand, you have people resorting to a public space because rule of law has failed to work for them and the judicial system has failed them. And on the other hand, you have state enforcement mechanisms that fall under Ministry of Interior, taking the law into their own hands and circumventing the justice process. So where do we, it is so murky that in every case, in the middle is the judiciary, and you want to blame them. And when the president blames them, he's weaponizing his attack on the judiciary using all of these things. But in actual fact, the judiciary, I am empathetic and sympathetic, and they're it is between a rock and a hard place. Yet it is a legitimate third arm of the government.
Yeah. Okay, I know you have to leave right after this break because you have a court case. But so you can give your final remarks now, then we'll release you.
Basically, what I would say that we should not instrumentalize the judiciary.
Yeah.
to achieve a certain goal. First of all, the judiciary upholds the rule of law. Even the criminals who appear before the judiciary have got rights.
Yeah.
So the judiciary has to look at both sides and equate it. In terms of the bail that the magistrate gave out to Mr. Babu Owino, it's really discretionary, because we have seen cases whereby you are not told to pay in installments, but the same magistrate will even half or even reduce the bail by 3/3, depending on the factors mitigating factors that arise. So maybe Owino, this guy may have proposed that he could pay in installments. So he said, okay, go ahead and pay
in installments.
But we will have that. The other thing is that I would rather that we target individual judges so that we go where evidence leads us. To talk about the judiciary, to blame the sins of one man on an institution is not fair.
Yeah.
And if there's any issue with any judge, let us deal with that judge. And if there's an issue with the issue of the Akasha, then let us have a formal discussion about it and know really what happened, instead of having these placards and all this sloganeering going around. And then when I come to the whole issue of law enforcement in this country, it needs serious attention. We need serious funding.
Yeah.
The police need to be given the tools, the knowledge and the skills to be able to investigate crimes, to be able to uphold the rights of people whom they investigate and things like those. The prosecutors need to go through the same issue. And then, of course, you come to the judge, then the judicial officers, they also need to have that facilitation. Like I usually sit in court and I see judges sitting there. And I've told myself, in any of my lives, I don't want to be a judge. These people write forever.
Yeah.
They listen for so many, they sit for very long. I don't even know what happens to their health. So it's a very, very difficult occupation. And in fact, the lower you come, like the magistrates, if you look at the kind of work the magistrate does, you do not believe a human being can pull it off, but they do pull it off. So these are people who are doing a lot of work for this country, who are doing it with very minimum resources.
Yeah.
And the least we should do is to condemn them.
Right.
If there's any rotten apple among them, we go for the rotten apple. But let us support this institution, because without the judiciary, the next is anarchy.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to go the way of anarchy.
All right.
And our judiciary, to me, has performed well with the resources they have.
Yeah.
Let us just support them.
Yeah.
The CJ, let him go back, recall that statement. He said that he's inferior to the president or the junior of the president. Yeah. He's not. He's a co-equal. He's a co-head of the. They just have different functions they perform.
Okay.
And I pray that at the end of the day, like I always do, we all pray for the prayer. I'm a man who believes in prayer. We should pray for the president. We should pray for the deputy president. We should pray for our leaders, so that they can see the light of the law. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you one thing. When God created Adam and Eve and put them in the Garden of Eden, he put them dominion, they gave them dominion over everything. God never told Adam, you have dominion over Eve. Yeah. God never told Eve, you have dominion over Adam. God told Eve, you have the law. Yeah. Thou shalt not do this. And the power that God also gave Adam was the power to say no. Because if only Adam had said no, or Eve had said no to the devil, we would still be in paradise. So let us look at the rule of law and to uphold that law by rejecting anything that assaults that law. And that's what I personally do. Not that I fight government, not that I've got anything against anybody. I want this country to move forward. And President Uhuru can move us forward if he just embraces the rule of law. There's nothing I have against him. Let him embrace the rule of law when we'll give him all the support he needs.
All right, we have to take a quick break here. Okiya Mtata has to leave for court and I'll be ushering him out. So when we come back, Zinzi will be here. She'll take your feedback and also continue this conversation with Mark, Jerotich, and Demas as well, and take final remarks from them. And also, we'll be back in just a bit. We have your feedback. Don't worry. We see them. She will read them in just a bit.
See you in a bit.